Casey's biggest hits.
A year ago this week, one of the biggest hits in the USA was Diamonds and Pearls by a superstar who set up a scholarship fund for a fan he never met. I'll have details and that big hit after this.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. We're listening to the best of the best, the 40 biggest number one songs of the decade. Now a musician from Minneapolis who finished high school at age 16. That's when he moved into a wild basement apartment decorated in strange fabrics and mirrors. He worked there at a feverish pace, teaching himself to play 27 different instruments and writing 4 songs a day. A couple of years later, he got his first record contract, and 6 years after that, he made his movie debut in Purple Rain. The soundtrack album he recorded for it went to number 1 and stayed there almost a half a year. And the first number 1 single from that album is at number 14 in our survey. Here is Prince with his biggest number 1 ever, When Doves Cry.
Casey's Top 40.
Nearly 50 years ago, Orson Welles amazed Hollywood by writing, directing, and acting in the movie Citizen Kane. Well, now we're up to the latest hit for another multi-talented superstar. He writes, directs, acts, and then some. In fact, in his upcoming film Graffiti Bridge, this rocker may be wearing more hats than any other filmmaker in history. In the movie business, it's considered noteworthy if one person does 2 or more jobs on a film, like being both a writer and a director. But in the case of this superstar's latest movie, he did so much, there's hardly any work left for anyone else. He wrote the film, he directed it, he stars in it, he choreographed it, and he dances in it. He also wrote all the music in it, produced the soundtrack, sang on it, and played most of the instruments. But there's more. He's designed the sets for the film and all the clothing that the cast wears. He even designed the film's poster. In fact, he's done just about everything for Graffiti Bridge except sell the tickets and make the popcorn. But if by chance you do spot him behind the concession stand, don't be surprised. Just place your order and hand your money over to Prince. This week, that talented singer, musician, songwriter, scriptwriter, director, actor, choreographer, dancer, set designer, and costume designer is at number 34 on Casey's Top 40 with his former top 10. Here's Thieves in the Temple.
Casey's Top 40.
And that means we're up to the brand new number 1 song in the USA on Casey's Top 40. And it's the latest smash for a superstar who says he makes music for the same reason Mozart said he made music. If he didn't, he'd go mad. In his own way, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was an 18th century rock star. By taking new directions and trying avant-garde sounds, he often confused and angered his critics and his audiences. He lived life in the fast lane with lots of late-night drinking and even the classical equivalent of groupies. And he burned out like many a modern-day rocker, dying at the young age of 34. In his letters, Mozart often tried to describe the degree to which he didn't just make music for the sake of making music. He made music because if he didn't, he'd lose his mind. Music would just come into his head, and if he didn't write it down, it would stay there, stuck, trapped in his brain until it drove him to madness. Being a musician was his only way of avoiding lunacy. Well, 200 years later, there's another ahead-of-his-time superstar in our countdown who says he's a musician for much the same reason. He also says that there's music in his head all the time, and it's only by putting it on record that he can free himself of the sounds. He says, quote, "If I don't make music, I think I'd die. I'd go mad. I can hear sounds all the time. For me, it's almost a curse." Well, in the process of exorcising his musical demons, this artist has managed to create 23 top 40 hits, 17 of them top 10s, and 7 number 1s, including the biggest hit in the land this week. The brand new number 1 song in the USA on Casey's Top 40 is Cream by Prince.
At number 27 is a guy known for not saying much on stage, let alone making social commentary. But when all the violence and looting went on in L.A. after the Rodney King verdict, even Prince had something to say. While playing a show in Australia at the Sydney Entertainment Centre, he asked the crowd, "Is there any racism in the house?" And there was a thunderous no. "Is there any hate? Any bad times?" And the answer every time, people screamed no and kept on screaming. And then finally, he led the entire crowd of about 12,000 people in an a cappella version of his song Live for Love. Now here he is with his latest single. This is Money Don't Matter Tonight.
Casey's biggest hits.
A year ago this week, one of the biggest hits in the USA was by a superstar who set up a scholarship fund for a fan he never met. It was back in 1988 that this multi-talented artist heard about 17-year-old Frederick Weber, a teenager who was killed when he was hit by a car. The car went out of control while Frederick was standing in line outside a record store in Boston waiting to buy concert tickets. Well, when the man who starred in that concert heard about the death of that fan, he was devastated. A teenager had lost his life to hear his music. And so the superstar established a scholarship fund in the fan's name. And he put on a benefit show in Boston to raise several $100,000 to get the fund started. A year ago this week, that concerned musician had one of the biggest hits in the USA, Diamonds and Pearls.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. We're counting down the biggest hits in the USA. Slipping 7 notches to number 11 is a superstar who recently opened a Los Angeles branch of his Minneapolis nightclub, Glam Slam.
Yes, we're halfway through the mother of hits in our Mother's Day weekend edition of AT40. I'm Shadoe Stevens. AT40 got the opportunity to see Prince and the New Power Generation here in L.A. a couple of weeks ago. This guy has more energy on stage than anyone I've ever seen in my life. He's like a hummingbird. He stands and he vibrates. I was in awe. I think he's from another planet. Over 2.5 hours of show. I was exhausted at the end of the show. That was unbelievable. And then when the show was over, the word was spreading that he was going to play the Glam Slam Club downtown. That's his new club in downtown L.A. And the place was packed by midnight. Finally, at 2 in the morning, Prince went on and played an entirely different 2-hour set, played every instrument but the drums, jammed with the NPG, and debuted a couple of new songs, one called Spank. Spank is about child abuse, and he was reading the lyrics from a purple book. After the song, he asked the crowd how many had children, and then he warned, "Don't abuse them, or they'll turn out like me." There's no one else like the man at number 18. Here he is, Prince.
He realized that she was new to love, naive in every way.
Music. Wasn't too long ago that Prince shocked the industry when he announced his retirement from recording. And now just a few weeks ago, he chose his 35th birthday to make a few more announcements. First, he's leaving his most recent band, the New Power Generation. And second, and this is the winner here, he's announced that he's changing his name to that unnamed symbol from the front of his last album. So now, not only will Prince be the most elusive rock star, but we can't even refer to him with a sound.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the brand new hit for a multi-talented superstar who recently changed his name. Not to a new name, but to an unpronounceable symbol. Even his own record company doesn't know exactly what to call him. He's Prince Rogers Nelson, the man from Minneapolis who for over a decade simply called himself Prince. Then, a year ago, all that started to change. He put out a new album with a strange and mystical symbol as its title. The symbol is a circle with an arrow and a cross coming out of it, and what looks like a horn coming off of one side. Some say it resembles a combination of the symbols for male and female. Soon after that, Prince announced that not only was the symbol the name of the album, he was going to officially adopt the unpronounceable symbol as his name. The rock press was confused, and when writers called Prince's record company to ask questions like what name they were going to use on his new record contract, they were told the unpronounceable symbol was no joke. Prince was very serious about his new name. The people at the record company also said they hadn't a clue as to what to call the symbol. It just was what it was. In the past few months, Prince's new symbolic name has inspired contests on radio stations all over the country. Listeners were asked to come up with the cleverest way of naming the symbol. And the responses have ranged from serious ones like Love Sexy to not so serious ones like Gleep and Bleep. No matter how you pronounce it, Prince is the man who sings the third of our 5 debuts this week on Casey's Top 40. Rolling in at number 37, here he is with a name we do know how to pronounce. Pink Cashmere.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to a superstar who recently threw himself a birthday party that went great until it came time to sing Happy Birthday. That superstar is the man who used to call himself Prince, but now uses an unpronounceable symbol as his name. And the party in question was one that he put together to celebrate his 36th birthday on June 7th. The multi-talented artist threw the party at his hot new nightclub in Miami, the Glam Slam. And to help him celebrate, he invited 1,500 friends. It was truly a night to remember, particularly when Prince got up on stage to perform an extended set, including a few numbers where he was joined by Madonna. As the evening reached its climax, a huge birthday cake was rolled out, and the band struck up a funk and rap version of Happy Birthday. The 1,500 friends were doing fine with the song as they went through the lines, Happy Birthday to you, Happy Birthday to you. Then, when they got to Happy Birthday, dear, they got completely confused. No one wanted to sing the name Prince. Some sang Squiggle, others sang Symbol, and some sang the word TAFCAP, the letters of which stand for the artist formerly known as Prince, TAFCAP. But most of the 1,500 guests just sort of mumbled, unsure of how to sing Happy Birthday to the man who has taken as his name that unpronounceable symbol. Whatever he calls himself these days, there's no denying that the 36-year-old superstar is continuing to churn out big hits. This week, his recent number one is survey song number 16 on Casey's Top 40. Here's, you know who.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the latest hit by Prince, a superstar who's getting as famous for his studio complex as he is for his music. In the past few years, that studio has hosted everything from Cadillacs to cleansers to fine young cannibals. Back in the mid-'80s, the multi-talented singer, songwriter, and producer decided he wanted a place close to his home in Minneapolis that would be his creative center, both a state-of-the-art recording studio and a place he could rehearse his band. Well, Prince decided to call it Paisley Park. And as he worked on the plans, his dreams started to grow. The building kept getting bigger and more elaborate. The single studio became 3 studios, and the simple rehearsal space blossomed into a 16,000-square-foot sound stage. Then Prince added space for his record company, video facilities, a set-building shop, a choreography room, dressing rooms, and a wardrobe and costume department. And by the time Paisley Park opened for business in 1987, it had mushroomed to 65,000 square feet, about the size of 30 average-sized homes. And that's when Prince's vision began to pay off. In the 7 years the studio complex has been open, it's been home to an unbelievable variety of artists and products. TV commercials have been produced there for Cadillac, Volkswagen, Porsche, and Lincoln Mercury, not to mention Huggies diapers and Comet cleanser. The complex has become a favorite for tour rehearsals, a favorite of acts as diverse as the Bee Gees, Neil Young, Barry Manilow, MC Hammer, and Stevie Ray Vaughan. And of course, Paisley Park is also famous for its recording studios used by the likes of R.E.M., Madonna, Paula Abdul, Patti LaBelle, the Pointer Sisters, and fine young cannibals. Here's the singer, songwriter, producer, and businessman who used to call himself Prince with Let It Go.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. Casey's Top 40 originates in Hollywood. Leaping 10 notches to number 21 is Prince, a normally shy star who last month appeared on the nationally televised Today Show. Prince was there to say goodbye to one of the show's hosts, Bryant Gumbel. And as a form of flattery, Prince dressed in an expensive suit and tie, just the kind Bryant likes to wear. Here's Prince singing The Holy River.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
You're listening to the hottest songs of the week. 25 years ago, one of the hottest songs was by Prince. It's a song he wrote while cruising around in a big pink Edsel. But the song titled Big Pink Edsel just didn't sound right. So he changed the model and the color to Little Red Corvette.